Yeah, he says he kicked, and they're scared of him because he could fix a truck. Like they're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck. That's what he said. Like, do you? I bet you don't.
The lady doth protest too much.
I bet you don't.
I fear.
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools, you're
This is the guy that wants to be your vice president, calling the #1 entrepreneur in America that gay guy. You understand how weird that is? You just call him that gay guy?
That gay guy. You've never said that. You've never said that.
Adam, how do you feel about that gay guy? Comment at Tim Walz this month.
Now buckle up, everyone, because we have a story you won't want to miss. You know, when you think about political showdowns, you may imagine heated debates or angry speeches. What about a live, unscripted television grilling? That is exactly what occurred when Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David decisively defeated Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
We were getting scary close to people justifying totalitarian measures.
I think we need to push back on this.
Tim Walz in the campaign trail was literally saying free speech doesn't include hate speech and misinformation.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Hey man, you, because everything that we called misinformation just a few years ago, it's on the front page of the New York Times now that we were lied to.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those San Diego parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice.
Okay, so that was one of the ones that
That's like I think he misspoke, but to say that I'm friends with school shooters, like we hang out on the weekends. I tell them not
friends with a
school shooter.
So
yeah.
It was not only a critique. Rather, it was a frenzied assault of humor and reality that attacked Walz's leadership in every way imaginable.
If you can play this, the audience is deeply concerned about your question. Go ahead, Rob.
What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here.
Well, that. Okay.
What do you want me to say? This is.
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman.
Was intense, truly. Imagine this. To people who are both adept at getting to the heart of the matter confronted Walz's political record from a variety of angles. They raised awareness of everything, from his bewildered epidemic response to his odd views on crime and education. After the two of them were able to sort out a web of unmet promises and mismatched objectives, many people wondered how he was able to stay in government for so long. Really, it's rare to see someone in the political hot seat being questioned in this manner.
I know I'm doing something right when the Fox News crowd is all pitching at me like crazy. Like, I'm loving it.
That guy was almost the vice president of the United States.
Elon Musk was crying last week. Tim is being mean to me, base, you know, like, yeah.
And what do you know? For once, their clever and insightful analysis made politics interesting, if not humorous.
Because they're not ready for the common sense questions.
Yeah.
They're not ready for the simple questions. And when he just sat there when he had no answer, and then he didn't understand the question, and then he said, "What do you want me to say?" And I'm like, oh my God, you're never going to be president. You will not be running in 2028. You're done.
Well, I don't know whether, it was because of that question or not, if he would ever be president, because the way he handled himself in the debate with J.D. Vance, that was that's probably the worst debate performance I've ever seen, aside from Joe Biden's debate with the president. The first one was
where we left off with the fascinating analysis by Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David, which exposes Governor Tim Walz's political past like a tattered old sweater.
That Tim Walz, if that guy got into power, like if Kamala died and Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, was our fucking president, you know how crazy this country would be? That weirdo who puts tampons in the boys' room. And what about our joy? Like, he's a complete pathological liar. Like a complete liar. Lied about being in Tiananmen Square. Lied about being a fucking...
To say they were thorough would be an understatement. They addressed each error with a combination of sharp wit and unquestionable facts that made a compelling case for why Walz's leadership style was more about stumbling into avoidable disaster than it was about offering inspirational direction.
One of my favorites was that Tim Walz tried to claim that his wife got pregnant through in vitro fertilization, and she said that's not true. So he lied about that.
Some of you might have heard this. This is very personal for my wife and I. When Gwen and I decided to have children, we went through years of fertility treatments. And I remember each night praying that the call was going to come and it was going to be good news. The phone would ring, tenseness in my stomach, and then the agony when you heard the treatments hadn't worked.
The First Lady of Minnesota, Gwen Walz, revealed that she underwent a different fertility treatment, not IVF, called intrauterine insemination.
What a weird guy he was.
His wife had to come out and say he was lying. That guy lied about everything. He lied about being a head coach. He was an assistant coach. Lied about his military rank. Lied about whether or not he served.
Without holding back, Rogan and Bet-David criticized Walz's handling of the epidemic.
Just weird and how avoidable it was.
100% avoidable, but pathological liars, people that are habitual liars, they just lie all the time.
In their depiction, Walz turned uncertainty into a new art form, something that many leaders have found challenging.
We were pitted into a hunger game against our neighbors to find toilet paper. That's how bad it was. So now, I suppose it wasn't too bad, thinking back to that economy. If you're a billionaire, Elon Musk, for example, say, that guy got it. Michigan knows that word. Look, that dude got a tax cut and the rest of us got shafted on.
He paid $11 billion in taxes, Tim. How much have you paid in?
The rules were always changing, so it was like trying to nail jelly to a wall as states around the country grappled with their own issues. Rogan said Walz seemed to be handling common sense pandemic management like he was spinning a roulette wheel. Businesses suffered severely as a result of inconsistent regulations.
Question for everybody. How often do you talk and say something like, hey, Vinny, you know that gay guy? You ever talk to people like that?
Never.
I'm just curious, do you talk like that? Do you talk like that? Maybe you're watching this, you're like, I don't want to admit to it because I'm sitting in the bathroom watching this, but just yesterday I told my brother that gay guy. Okay, maybe that's you. That's okay. But guess what? Don't feel bad. Because somebody that's about to be your vice president also says that regularly. He says it so regularly that it's slipped up.
What if small companies were abruptly forced to shut their doors while big box merchants thrived? They take her inside and the topic was...
They bring in her and they bring in this other guy who's radical from Minnesota. That's the vice president who, he believes a lot of wild things. One of them is transgender surgery for people who are under 13. Another one is abortion up until 9 months.
Ooh.
Yeah. He changed the Minnesota state flag to make it look like the Somali flag. That stuff scares me.
How quickly can you break a small company owner's spirit? Rogan compared it to a scientific experiment. That's precisely how Rogan said it, even if it could come out as harsh. Have you ever tried running a business? Imagine trying to open your doors and having them slammed shut, only to be told that you are needed only on Tuesdays when the moon is full. Bet-David turned to crime data and made a comparison that was as simple as it was harmful. Under Walz, crime rates rose like a contestant on a game show moving up the rewards ladder. Rogan claims that Walz's leadership decided against in-person preaching in favor of remote delivery. It was like putting out a raging forest fire with a spray bottle and no sense of urgency. Bet-David deftly assessed Walz's reluctance to take decisive action. The thick layer of bureaucracy, which was like frosting on a cake that no one wanted to eat, was another factor contributing to the issue, along with the lack of a plan. Reports were prepared, committees were formed, and in the end, it seemed that no decisions had been taken. It's irritating enough to consider waiting for a punchline that never comes. Rogan and Bet-David also targeted education. They asked the audience how Minnesota schools could have plummeted to ruin. Academic achievement abruptly gave way to educational chaos, with children experiencing learning deficits so severe that the situation resembled a film about a school disaster. When Rogan said that it seemed as if Walz was controlling the schools by throwing darts at a board covered with educational catchphrases, he didn't mince words. It was obvious to everybody that nothing significant had happened. Rogan's comments graphically portrayed a collapsing educational system. Students struggled with remote learning. schools lost ground in the national rankings, and trust in educational leadership was all but shattered. You also know that it's not only about the pupils. The emphasis is on families and the labor of the future, and sometimes it seems as if Walz forgot who he was writing for. Despite the fact that Rogan and Bet-David were serious, Walz continued to make headlines for all the wrong reasons. He also questioned Walz's ethics and honesty, noting how imagination and reality often blurred. In his speeches, Rogan highlighted how forced his delivery seemed, comparing it to satire, and pointed out frequent misstatements that made him appear out of control. Bet-David criticized Walz's economic policies, calling them a stress test marked by tax hikes, red tape, and inflated budgets with poor results. They argued that leadership should be about delivering outcomes, not just looking busy. Rogan also exposed how free speech and independent thinking were suppressed under Walz's leadership, likening it to Orwellian control. Finally, Bet-David said Walz lacked vision and direction, portraying him as a leader adrift. The critique was so sharp, it felt like a masterclass dismantling every flaw in real time.